All right, well, welcome, good morning. This is the Journalism and Production Breakout. I'm John Parmley, Chair of the department, and we have with us folks both from journalism and production who have gained some knowledge over the years. Several are alumni also, so they might want to give some tips for the students also. But they're here to talk about, their road, how they got to where they are, tips they have for college students, and then after that, after each person gives a presentation, then we'll go through and do some Q&A. So I guess we'll begin over here.
Oh, I get to start. Hi, I'm Karen Fagans. I'm Vice President of Content and Operations at WJCT, which is the public broadcasting station in Jacksonville. We do radio and television, and I've worked in both sides. Most of our news is on the radio side, and our television programming, our local programming is documentary style programs and magazine programs and things like that. So we do a little bit of the journalism and a little bit of the production. And if you're not familiar with 89.9, our radio station, I'd encourage you to listen. I think most of the time when people who are interested in news and what's going on in the world around them find that station, then they continue listening. But we have some great local journalists. Lindsay Kilbride is one of our reporters at the station. And I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to be saying, but my one piece of advice to you as a student is get as much experience, hands-on experience, as possible. So take every opportunity you can to get in the door, to do the type of work that you want to be doing, and nothing is beneath you. I think that it's the best attitude to have when you want to try to really work in this industry is. Do whatever it takes to get in the door and prove yourself. In the old days it was ripping scripts and running teleprompters and things like that. Some of those jobs no longer exist, but I'm sure there are still entry-level positions. Do whatever you can to get started, to prove yourself, and to start to understand how the industry works.
I'm Kayla Beckman. I am the owner of Small Fox Media. It is a startup production company here in Jacksonville. I just started this past year, celebrated a year in August. I'm also a producer there as well. We are a media house without the house, as I always say, so we're based all on freelancers. Based on every specific job, we build a team based on that job. It allows us to be very cost efficient, very effective, and pull in a lot of really great talent from all over the country. I think the biggest advice that I would give would definitely echo Karen's is you have to be doing things now. I mean, yesterday. You have to be getting in, even if it's unpaid, if it doesn't count for college credit, just do it, even if it's a one-time thing where, I gave the example yesterday, if you can run a social media account for the current job you work for, or if you can produce a very short video for their website, any opportunity you can get to get that kind of experience, put it on your resume and have something physical that you can show potential employers is going to make you so much stronger. A degree is so great, but in this business and in this industry, having that physical thing that you can show somebody and say, I own this, I produce this, I did this is what my work looks like, that's going to get you really far and really respected.
Hi, I'm Monica Whitesall. I'm a producer at WJXT Channel 4. It's the independent station here in Jacksonville. I actually started off here at UNF as a broadcasting major, and probably I'm going to definitely go off what they said because it's true. And I'm just going to say, definitely get as much experience and also get experience in different areas. I actually started off as an editor at News4Jax and then worked my way up as an AP, a producer in training, and just recently became a producer. So definitely just be able to do everything. I also fill in on the desk there, so I can do a lot of stuff there when need be. So, but definitely get experience, and that way more too, and different angles and aspects of the job, which helps, like when I'm producing, I'm like, okay, I work the desk. I know who to call if it's overnight and no one's in. Who do I need to call for this, crime scene that's happening? Definitely.
Hey, my name is Lindsay Kilbride. I'm a reporter with WJCT, as Karen mentioned. I was a journalism major here at UNF. I actually graduated less than a year ago, so I'm new to the workforce. But I think that the reason that I was able to go straight into a job that I really loved is because of my internship at WJCT. And so my advice would be to make the most out of your internships. As Karen can probably attest to, I wouldn't leave the station. I stayed an extra semester. I came in more days a week. I did extra things. I wasn't afraid to have ideas at the meeting, even if I didn't know if they would work or not, or if there was something the station wanted to report on. I just went for it, and I think that showed that I don't know, I guess it showed that I was serious about wanting to do this job. And then what Monica just said is important too. I think that having multiple skills is really important. Yes, I'm a reporter, but I also write web stories. I also have to take photos while I'm out. I also 4 times a year have to make a video package with our other side, the PBS side. So knowing how all of that works is really helpful, and the more skills you have, the more different ways your job can use you. So I think that's really important.
Marcel Robinson, I work for Channel 17 here in Jacksonville. Also fellow UNF grad. I graduated years ago. Pretty much what I do at the station, 9 times out of 10, I'm a producer. Also, just like everyone else here, I do everything, you name it, direct, write scripts, camera work. And kind of to pick up on what everyone else said, just make yourself more valuable, get your hands on everything, touch everything. The more things you know how to do, especially for younger people trying to get into the workforce, the more you can do, the less they have to train you on. And also just ask questions. I find a lot of times a lot of people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to ask the wrong question or be looked at as, like a dumb question or so. But the only way you'll know is to ask, so that would be my thing.
Hi everyone, I'm Carla Jones, the owner of Carla Michelle Media, which is a storytelling company. I combine my journalism and marketing expertise to tell the stories of my clients. I believe that everyone has a unique story behind their talent or their business, so I help my clients tell that story and market it to their target audience. I'm from Jacksonville, and I started out interning at Channel 4, actually with Mr. Corbett. I interned in the news department as well as the research department with him. I graduated from the University of Florida, and I came back home to work at First Coast News for 2 years. After that, I got into marketing, and I was in marketing up until April of this year. While I was working for that firm, I was also working with Marcellus at CW as a reporter and anchor for I Know Jax. And so it just became a time where after hours I was working on my passion, which was still in journalism and reporting. And during the day I was doing marketing. So after a while, the journalism, I started getting more jobs to do that, and I left my marketing job. So I'm now using all the things I learned in marketing to market my business and to also market the businesses and interests of my clients.
Hey, my name is Zach Sweat, and I'm the digital editor for Void magazine. I was in your position pretty recently. I graduated in August of last year, but despite that, by the time I had already graduated, I'd pretty much written for every publishment in town, and that's kind of I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give you is go to the Spinnaker, and that's where you should get your feet wet, because that was the single greatest thing I did for myself. I went to the Spinnaker and started writing and kind of got the feel for how that system operates. And then I took that to Void and started an internship, and Kayla was actually my boss when I first started, so it's kind of funny. And then I just kind of worked my way into that company, and I basically found a void in Void. And I kind of just from there worked my way up and found kind of a spot with the digital editing side where there wasn't a person really managing the day-to-day website. So I decided to take that on, and I was actually print journalism track when I was here, but I think it's really important for students to kind of adapt, and journalism is changing every day, so it's really important to be able to stay on top of it. and just stay with the times so that you don't get left behind like a lot of newspapers have. So I think it's really important to just stay focused in school, but also learn like the new stuff that's going on and make sure you just get everything you can out of it. So.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Weiss. I'm a public affairs specialist at Mayo Clinic, and I actually went to Flagler. So back when there was no PR program, there were 2 classes. So I actually had the goal of working for a daily newspaper, which I landed that job a month after graduating at the Financial News and Daily Record here in Jacksonville. So I stayed in town for a while, went up north where I'm from to work for the Washington Post Company, and really was focused on print journalism, although I'll be honest, at the time my goal was to be working in DC, running up the courthouse steps, shoving a microphone in someone's face, but I'll be honest, the teleprompter scared me, so I never went that route. But I started to get more into marketing and public relations once I was up in DC, worked for a couple magazines, and then went into the PR side. Now at Mayo, we're kind of a hybrid. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. You may have heard some of the terms branded journalism. So a lot of companies these days are really working to create branded content that they're making available to organizations, print and broadcast, so that if reporters are not available or as stations are changing their format, staff are a little bit more lean and mean these days. Lindsay, I think as you mentioned, you're doing all sorts of different things, taking pictures, writing stories, but if she can't get to something, we actually have our own branded news network engine which will provide content. So thanks to this gentleman here on my right, who you hear from in a minute, we're capturing our own content. We're doing our own videotaping, interviews with physicians, writing content, putting it out there and making it available for download. At the same time, part of my job is actually storytelling. Everyone does have a story. So it's taking that journalism background, it's taking what makes a good story. But one of the things that I've learned over the years, versatility aside, which is extremely important, and asking questions, as someone said, but it's looking at things with a different set of eyes. As everyone said, journalism has changed a lot over the years. We're now in this multimedia world, social media, things are living in multiple different platforms. So the ability to see something with many different skins, if you will. Is this a written story? How can I make it multimedia? Is there audio that goes with it? Is there video that goes with it? So taking 5 minutes, taking a pause and looking at a story that you have and seeing if there's an opportunity to have it live in a different way, a different medium, a different modality. How can you add day 2, day 3 to it? Is there a social content? Look at things from that perspective. That will lead you very far, I think, particularly when I look at the position that I'm in. When I started at Mayo, I was running the print newsletter. Print newsletter doesn't exist anymore. So the stories are becoming video. The stories are living on social media. The stories are taking place in different ways, and now we're making content available. So it's evolved just as the classroom has evolved. So I would say look at things with a little bit of a different perspective, and see if you can find a different use for it.
Great. My name is Jeff Preston. I'm executive producer with Media Support at Mayo. I work very closely with Cindy on a lot of the news release pieces that she's talking about, the storytelling, patient stories in particular that she mentioned. I'm fairly new to Mayo. I joined in January, and the big reason that I was brought in was just for this reason, to help give some oversight to the department, to help tell these patient stories in particular, and that's what really drew me into it. My background, for about 15 years, I was working in Philadelphia, doing a mix of documentary, corporate, commercial type of work. And one thing that I think everybody who spoke on the panel mentioned is being as versatile as you can is very important. I know, for instance, there'll be times where I'm doing projects. I was a director of photography for several TV series for PBS Kids Sprout. And then the following week I'd be shooting stuff for Spike TV. So very different audiences, but again, the things that remain constant, I think, for me, and helped me be successful, were not only honing my skills in different things, But being someone who's easy to work with, being someone who is a problem solver, things come up on set, there are challenges, some people lose their cool, and a lot of those people, I think, I never saw them again once that happened. I mean, you need to be at the top of your game, but you also need to think about how you interact with the people around you. But one thing that was, I think, the biggest benefit for me as I worked my way up, I went to Penn State, started an internship, made very little money, but that led to my first job. And then the connections from there, I never knew I'd be sitting here, working for Mayo Clinic, speaking to you, 15 years from when I started. But all those connections and all those different avenues opened up to me because of that hard work. So I started off as an assistant to the producer, not even assistant producer, it's kind of like The Office, I was assistant to the producer. Within a year, I was one of their primary camera people, and then I my first job. And then I quickly learned that if I want to go out freelance, if I want to do this on my own, if I essentially want to be my own business owner, I need to know multiple things. So I started learning editing and producing and sound and all the different aspects of it. So that way, I was always busy, no matter what opportunities came up. And plus, if you're a camera person, there's no better thing to be than an editor who can make sure that only the good shots get seen. So in any case, that's my advice, what everyone mentioned, just trying to be as multi-versatile as you can, but at the same time, my biggest piece of advice is be enthusiastic, be someone who is a problem solver, be someone that you want to have on set, because it's stressful enough just with everything else you have going on. The last thing you need is somebody who's supposed to be on your team making it worse. So.
Can I say one more thing? Just because Lindsay gave her experience and talked about being hired after coming in as an intern, it also jogged my memory. And one more thing that I think is critically important. It is really important to have all of the skills. I say now that I won't hire anyone who can't do everything, because you just have to know how to do everything. But writing is essential. And the reason that Lindsay was hired is because she was dedicated, because she came in with a great attitude, but also because she came in with really good ideas. And those ideas come from being involved in the community. Those ideas come from paying attention to what's going on. And I see a lot of young people, especially coming in to interview for internship positions, and I say, so how do you get your news? What is your morning routine? How do you get your news throughout the day? And I get a blank stare. And I'm like, how do you want to work in a newsroom if you're not reading a newspaper, if you're not online looking at several blogs and national newspapers every single day? It is important to keep up with things through social media, and I get a lot of my news through social media, but it's also important to look outside of your social media feed to understand what's going on outside of the people who agree with you and think like you. And it's critical if you're going to work in a newsroom to do that. And Lindsay was hired because she came to us with a lot of really unique, interesting ideas, and those came from being informed and being involved in the community.
Could I say, sorry, I forgot one of my points. He was saying one of the things that's really important is being able to work with people. I think another really important thing is being able to accept criticism. Because when I first started, I was kind of I don't know, when I write a story, it's almost like a painting or an art piece. You kind of want to defend it and you're kind of cutthroat about it. But it's really important to be able to share your content, whatever it is, whether it be video or writing or whatever, being able to share that with your peers and getting feedback and accepting some of that feedback, because I've had some interns that were kind of hesitant to accept feedback, and it really turns me off, so I think that's really important too, being able to accept criticism.
So Mayo Clinic is one of the internship sites. We get a lot of students from UNF over the years, although we've taken a little hiatus. But two things that I'll add to the internship component. Certainly what Karen said, writing is a must. But I would also give two other pieces of advice if you all are looking for internships. One, break out of the form letter. I can't tell you, and I've shared it with Paula, who probably will be in the back cringing. I've gotten a few of the form emails, probably not from anyone in this room because they were about a year or two ago. Dear Ms. Weiss, with my name spelled wrong, with no contact information for them, and not even a resume. So I realize that you guys may just be starting out, and some of you are probably in different stages and ages, as I like to call it, of your career and where you want to go. But take some time to do some research on the companies that you're reaching out to, and think about what your connection may be. Because that's a question I ask every person that walks in my door, just as Karen asked about the news. What's your connection? Why do you want to work in healthcare? But I also ask, what do you want to do, right? I think the one thing that, as everyone's talked about, learning as much as you can and doing all of these different jobs, at the end of the day, it's okay to realize that you don't like doing something. I think that if you can walk into a job and know that you've tried producing and you don't like it, you'd rather be a writer, it's okay. Learn the different jobs, but at the end of the day, I think you can take away what you love and what you don't want to do, because that will allow you to focus on where you want to go in your career. But at the same time, think about where it is that you want to go, or what are the things that you are passionate about. Because the biggest thing that turns me off to a student, I don't know, I just want to try everything. Well, there's a big difference between saying that and maybe, again, I work in healthcare. You know, I really don't know what I want to do. I'd like to try a little bit of everything, but I really am interested in healthcare in particular because I watched what my grandmother went through when she was sick. So I'm really intrigued by healthcare. Same answer, different tone, a little bit of different specificity as far as why. But just think about where you are, do a little bit of research, and think about what makes you unique and why someone really wants to spend time with you. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's how you're able to go get a job a month after you graduate. That's how you're able to start your own business and market yourself to your clients, because I think we're all in that business together, just as you are. The other thing I'll add is something that I do all the time. As a journalism major myself, you know, you're used to being told, find the story. And I apologize, I've already forgotten your name other than your middle name being Michelle, right? So Carla, you know, reiterates, of course, everyone has a story. There is a story in everything. The mistake that I make a lot of times, admittedly, is I'll talk to my doctors and say, I need a good story. Everybody has a story. Your job's to find it, including your own.
And I would add, a lot of times rejection happens. And, you know, different things happen in your life, whether they're personal, that affect your professional life. It's all together. And so I guess what I would have wished that I'd known younger is that my worth is not in my career. Having to find my worth outside of it, so that everything you do isn't it doesn't rely on if you're happy or not, I guess. I ask my clients in the beginning of our meetings, what is your measure of success for working with me? Some people want to be famous, they want national exposure, and others just want to be able to do and make a living at what they are passionate about. And so I'm that same way, so I tend to like to hear that answer. But I think that's very important before you do anything, to realize what is your measure of success, because you're also measuring your return on investment. What am I putting into this and expecting to get out of it? Because you can set yourself up for failure with your expectations. So you may be expecting something up here and it may not equate. So that's one thing I would ask you to ask yourselves. What is your measure of success? And also, what are you genuinely passionate about that you would do for free? Because I tend to, my personal experience is, when I was a kid, I used to take the microphones off of my baby dolls and pretend like I was interviewing people. Or me and my brother would sit down and tape ourselves doing a talk show. And I didn't realize until after college that I used to love those things. It was my mom who brought up, like, hey, remember your pink microphone? I'm like, what? And so I actually, with the photo shoot for my business, I incorporated that microphone. So like she's saying, bringing my personal story into what I do helps me to connect with other people as well.
So what are some questions that you guys have?
I have one for Miss Karen. So you said you are also affiliated with like the broadcasting part of things, specifically with the radio station. Are you guys solely focused on the news or more secular topics?
Our radio station carries national programming a good portion of the day from NPR and other national distributors. We also have local news segments during the morning and afternoon drive times and at noon. And we have a daily talk show from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock each day. And then in the evenings, we turn to music. So from 7 o'clock on, we have a variety of music. It's called After Hours. And so if you tune in at 11 o'clock on Wednesday, it'll be country music. On Friday, it's guitar, acoustic guitar. We have blues show. So really, we pride ourselves on being a local station, and all of our DJs are local, and we have a lot of local musicians come play live on the air, those types of things. So that's what I think separates us from other radio stations in the market, and you know, we are happy to have our local news presence on the air, but it's a mix of news and music, and what's unique about us is we don't have an ownership in DC or in New York or anywhere else, so it's right here in Jacksonville.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Okay, so it's for Mr. Marcellus.
Mm-hmm.
So I see you at the sports games. So how did you get into the sports journalism side?
Well, that's one of the things kind of going with what Carla said. It's, you know, you got to find your passion. I mean, I've been involved in sports since I could walk, so growing up when I was younger, I had two goals. I wanted to work in TV and work in sports. So with what I'm doing now as far as getting involved, kind of goes along with what I said earlier with asking questions. When I started at the station that I'm at now, we had a very limited sports presence. As a matter of fact, I still get it from time to time when I tell people where I work at. They say, "Oh, isn't that the teenage girl station with all the other drama shows?" So, I mean, the more I get that, it's kind of adds fuel to the fire. My main goal for the past, I'd say, year and a half on has just been, you know, kind of boost our sports presence. So now I'm just everyone that I know ask questions. If I can find a way that I can get to a game, and if I get a yes and I go, if I get a no, it's like, okay, and then we'll just kind of explore it later. But that's pretty much how I got involved in everything I do. I'm at every Jaguar event they have. I'm in the locker room, the games and everything. Just from asking questions, hey, I'm doing this, you know, can I come in? I do a lot of stuff here. Anyone that works in UNF athletics has probably seen me running around with a camera somewhere. That's pretty much it. Just, you know, find out what you want to do, and you know, it's okay to get rejected, but don't take that no as a negative thing. Just kind of use it to boost what you do.
Interruptions, people not coming prepared. I have doctors that show up all the time for interviews that have no idea what they're doing. You have to learn to roll with the punches. And I'm sure Jeff can talk a little bit more about some of the things that he's seen, and anybody else as well. When you go into an interview and the person doesn't show up, I mean, I don't know if you're live on camera and things happen very differently versus when we're taping, but being flexible, as Jeff had talked about, and accommodating, you know, figuring out how to just readjust to things. But sometimes that comes from years of experience, and by that I kind of mean age a little bit, in the sense that, you know, we probably have, a few of us here on the panel probably have a few more years of experience of dealing with some of those things that happen unexpectedly, as opposed to some of our younger colleagues. But again, being able to fall back on certain skills. What happens if the power goes out and the cameras stop recording, and you've still got to tell the news? Going back on that writing background, you may have to suddenly write a script as opposed to having a computer to type it into. So again, being flexible and versatile, but also being able to roll with those punches and rely on those skills that you may not use. This just serves as a really good reminder that things are going to happen, and you've got to be able to just roll with those punches.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. What other questions do we have? Yeah.
I'm a multimedia journalism and production concentration student, but I'm on the production track. The reason why I'm saying that is because when I came into UNF in the fall of 2011, the multimedia journalism and production were separate concentrations. And I was in the production track with a concentration on electronic media because I want to edit and create video, not necessarily for news, but for entertainment related purposes. But in 2012, I guess the department or the College of Arts and Sciences, I don't know, one of the two, made a decision to combine the multimedia journalism and production concentrations into one and just separate the two entities as different tracks. My question is, as a production student, as a production-oriented track student, I feel like the production part of the concentration is more the minority, and a lot of the stuff is focused more on the journalistic aspects. So my question is, why would you think that this would be a necessary change, despite the fact that I'm more into the production and creative aspects?
I can take that one. I was in the same, what's your name?
Justin.
Justin, I was in the same position as you. I was an electronic media student here. I started out in journalism and then halfway through ended up doing a double focus, doing journalism and electronic media. I actually wrote an 8-page letter when I left here saying that I didn't want to do news. I knew I didn't want to do news. I wanted to do production. I wanted to be on-air talent for sports journalism. But you know, as things happen, you kind of fall into certain roles, you adjust, and so I ended up being a producer. But I felt when I left here at UNF that there was such a heavy push to push students in electronic media into news. I did numerous pieces that weren't news related, surf videos, all sorts of things, and I felt like there wasn't much support. So to answer your question of why there's maybe two separate tracks, I'm not saying it's because of my 8-page letter. I'm just saying that I think it is important. You need to know everything. You need to know how to write. You need to know to tell stories. You need to know camera, editing, all of that. But really, once you get out into the world, they are two separate tracks. I, at this point, don't touch anything news related. We just do commercial work and film work. So if that is what you're looking to do, I would encourage you to learn how to write, to learn how to tell stories, all of that. But you know where your focus lies.
Right.
You know, I was going to say, we're at Mayo Clinic, and so one of the things I would add to that is, although I was the journalism focus, and I don't have a clue how most of the equipment works, I'll be honest, despite the fact that I wish I did, that wasn't available to me when I was going through school. But the one thing I would add, and I'll let Jeff pick it up from here, is I rely really heavily on Jeff as my partner in creating these productions, that if something happens, as has been the case recently, where I couldn't be there to do the news side and create the content, I know that Jeff has my back and he understands what I need to, what the deliverable is, what the package has to look like, so that I can rely heavily on him, that if I'm not there, I know that he's going to still deliver the right content.
Yeah. And my background is, when I went to Penn State, my degree is film and video production. Right. And I'm now doing, production here for Mayo, but also so much of what I do is tied directly into journalism in some respect because of the storytelling aspect. And even when I first got out of college, I quickly found that my passion was documentary storytelling. And I feel like there's a lot of places where those two things kind of mesh. But to your point, if there's certain things that you want to learn, certain, editing skills and things like that, I will say that now, not that I'm saying this is definitely the way to go, but I'm a little bit envious in some of the tools that are readily available now to folks as compared to when I was in school. The technology has changed, and the more you can become a storyteller, focus on the craft of doing it and not focus so much on the equipment or the technical side of it, the better. My senior thesis was shot on 16mm film, and we edited it on the first version of the Avid, which was a $70,000 piece of equipment that we all had to stand in line and wait 3 hours in order to take our turn to use it. And before that, leading up to it, I was editing on 3/4 tape, tape to tape, and 1/2-inch tape. So none of that happens now. But now you can buy Final Cut for $300 or something. So I will say that the more you can be open to different learning different things, the more you can take the initiative on your own to, if there's something that you're not getting from your schooling, I would say the more you can take your own initiative, learn it, apply it to what you're planning to do when you leave, but also taking what you've learned here, I think the better, because it really is about, I think particularly this day and age, understanding how to be flexible, understanding how to learn, and understanding how to adapt.
And I think what Kayla said is important too, that you might think you know exactly where your career is going to go right now, but you'll be surprised, I think, at how circuitous the route can be.
Right.
You know, I was sure that I knew exactly what I was going to do with my life, and nothing has worked out like I thought it would. So take a little bit of everything that you learn, because you never know when it will come in handy.
Similar to what Kayla was saying, like I started in print journalism and now I'm the digital editor for Void magazine. So like I spend probably 70% of my day on WordPress doing web posts and digital side of journalism. But I also still write, like music journalism is more my passion, so covering like bands and stuff. So I still do that on the side, and I always do the music section every month for the print mag. But when I got to Void, I thought I was going to be doing just print, and then I found like that place where I was needed there, and then I started doing the digital. So you just got to be able to, you know, find where the company could need you, and then be able to fill that. So.
Okay. You had a question?
Mm-hmm. This one's targeted towards Karen. What is a typical application process for a position at your company, and do you have any advice to stand out from the other applicants by chance?
Yes. The application process is to send a resume and a cover letter to our news director or our production team. We do have internships in radio news, radio production, and television production. And I would say to stand out, it's critical to write a good cover letter. That's really important. I have made hiring decisions before based on cover letters because it tells you so much about a person, how much time they're willing to invest. It tells you how much they really want that job. And if it's well written, it can tell you a lot about their background and what makes them right for that job. So I would say spend a lot of time on your cover letter. Make sure it's appropriate for the place, that you've done your research, that you've done your homework, and you know what we do at WJCT, and then explain why you would be perfect for that environment. And you know, show up prepared for the interview. Be confident. Look the interviewer in the eye. That's another thing I've noticed, is that a lot of people come in and I understand that this is the first interview experience, and I often give them feedback afterwards to let them know what worked or what didn't, but shake people's hands firmly, look them in the eye, have a conversation, and that'll help you to stand out.
If you don't mind me adding on that too, I know especially when I was at Void, and I was also at the Shepherd Agency as well, and then now at Small Fox. In this day and age, social media is going to help you stand out in both bad and good ways.
Oh, that's so true.
Yes. One of the first things I did when I got an email from Zach wanting to write for Void is check his Facebook page.
It's probably
and
worse than it is.
it wasn't bad. But in a good way, how you can stand out via social media is producing content. That's the best way to share your ideas, is via Twitter, via Facebook, Instagram. Especially if you are looking to be in either writing or creative field, write statuses or post blog posts and share them via social media. If you are already producing that content and no one's paying you for it, I'm going to believe, as someone who's hiring you, that you're passionate about it.
And let me say that the hashtag we're using on Twitter is hashtag UNF Media Week.
I guessed it, and I got it right.
Go for it.
I just want to say I think there's a line, but there's also overlap in your social media. Like, it's okay to be a person and, post a photo of your cat or something like that. It doesn't mean you can't be a person, but you do have to take into account who might be looking at your social media. And also, once you start interviewing people and being in the community more, people will just start adding you, and it's up to you whether you're going to accept that or not. But that's not the time to do damage control. It's before all this happened, so now is
Yeah.
a really good time.
Everyone you interview with will Google you and will look up your social media. So just keep that in mind when you're posting things, that whoever is thinking about hiring you will see what you post.
But, speaking of social media, even though we're talking about production in a lot of cases here, I can speak for someone who's been on the media side as well. Again, not knowing what all of your all's backgrounds are, but social media will also come in handy as a way to build relationships with certain people. With several of the news stations, for instance, again, as Karen said, listening to the news and hearing what the news of the day is. I can still remember about a year and a half ago, I'm sure, everybody here will remember when Angelina Jolie decided that she was going to put out there for the world that she'd had a, preventive double mastectomy because she carried this gene. Well, when you hear that broadcast on the news station, when you're driving to work on the radio, but you also recognize that that's going to be a big story for TV to cover as well. I was able to, sitting at a red light, use social media to connect to one of the producers at one of the TV stations and say, hey, I know this is happening today. By the way, keep us in mind. If you need a physician to interview, we can set you up. We can also set you up with a patient who chose this path for herself. And within 2 hours, we had a physician on interview on camera, story that ran, and we had her connected with a patient. So we were able to use, again, as Lindsay said, people will add you, but be selective as well in how you're using that tool. It's not to stalk someone and pitch them ideas or try to get an internship in that capacity, although maybe that's worked, I don't know. But being able to watch the feeds and learn from people. A lot of my social media feed is news. As Karen said, a lot of us do get our news from our social media. Sure, we watch TV. I watch TV at 6:30 and watch the newscast while I'm getting dinner together and dealing with my 5-year-old. But during the course of the day, I'm seeing things come in from all of the news stations, from the radio stations, from the newspaper, because it's also intriguing to me to see how different stories are being covered. And it kind of goes back to what I had mentioned as well. Depending upon where you are, depending upon where your passion is, there's always day 2, day 3, there's other angles for things. So taking a look at the work that you're doing and looking at stories from a unique perspective, you may find something that sets you apart from the crowd.
Yes.
This question is for the writers. What tips can you guys give for pitching story ideas?
I guess I'll start. I am the internship coordinator at Void 2. So I deal with all of the, we have like a couple different branches of interns, but the editorial interns are kind of like my favorite because I'm a writer and I consider myself like mostly a writer. So I really encourage, like, I know when I was in school, like a lot of the professors would kind of like give you some freedom and like you can really like find stories anywhere. And I always encourage my interns, like I have a running list of pitches that they can choose from, but I really want my interns to go out and like find cool stuff going on in town, or like find a new restaurant that's opening or somebody who's doing something really cool, and then like come to me with that story and I'll help you hone it. And I think that works out better than just me feeding you story ideas because you're not really coming up with them on your own. So I think like it's really important to kind of have your finger on the pulse of the community and look for stuff like that's going on in town and that you think could be an interesting story. So I think kind of having that freedom is really good for interns and stuff.
I have some ideas. I'm a writer first because to do radio, I have to write my script and write my story, so I'm also a writer. But I would say the best way to have story ideas is to be really in kind of what he was saying, be really active in the community, going to things that you're not necessarily going to for a class assignment or specifically for a story, but just to see what's out there. I know a lot of times there are mixer events and things like that where people in the community will come together and share ideas. Just being on the lookout being on the lookout to see where cool things are happening, where people who are trying to make change or make a difference, like where are they congregating. if you're interested in something, there's nothing wrong with cold calling people. I know everyone's scared of the phone, but that's how you find things out. Often when you're doing a story, someone will tell you something else that's really interesting, and explore that. You know, if something else piques your interest, maybe this isn't the best story. Maybe they have, you know, they're telling you something that's the bigger picture. So not shutting yourself out and having, you know, your blinders on or tunnel vision. You know, being really open. You know, after UNF, I went to this documentary school in Maine, and our instructors there would tell us to go sit in a diner, which sounds so silly to like just talk to someone random, but that's how some of the best stories come out, is just talking to random people. So that's what I'd say.
And do a little pre-reporting before the pitch, because there's nothing worse than, so there's this new restaurant in town. And, okay, but that's not a story. So if you come and instead say, there's a new restaurant in town, this is the first Argentinian restaurant in Jacksonville, and we have a huge Argentinian population that lives on the south side, and I've talked to a few of them, and they're really interested in being interviewed. And so the angle that I would take for this story is, that's the way you pitch a story. You have to know ahead of time what the story would be, or at least an idea of what it might look like. So instead of just pitching an idea, you're pitching how you're going to cover it.
And I think that it would be important to know what medium you're pitching to. Are you pitching it to WJCT for use on radio? Are you pitching it to me for a healthcare blog? Are you pitching it to Void? Are you pitching it to the Times? Where are you pitching? Because different media will require you to do a different type of pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say also learn your who you're pitching to, their personal interests. I have different, and build those relationships. There are different people at each station that I communicate with, and I know what they're interested in. Some of them are female reporters that love women issues. Others, you know, care more about community issues. Some stations only cover hard news, so know your audience.
More questions? Yes.
I got a question about experience, because everyone's talking about you need experience to get a job. Like, where did you guys all start? Was it internships or was it before that? Because I do videos, like I make videos for high school athletes, and just I do highlight videos. Would that be an experience? Because I don't really know. My mom's always telling me go to WJCT or the 17 CBS and see if you could have an internship there. And I was like, I don't think it works like that. Would I just go to a station and ask for a job, or how would I do it?
That's actually exactly how it works. You know, we get. I can't tell you how many times I'm walking back and forth through the hallway, and there's just, you know, someone at the front desk, you know, just wanting to come by. Hey, I was just coming by. I'm a student. You know, whether I have a resume or not, it's definitely better with a resume. You know, hey, I go to school and I'm looking for an internship. Just want to get more experience. And typically, if we have an opening, that's pretty much the process. And we do also interview our internship applicants. But I mean, yeah, just like I said, just walk in there and just ask. And to go along with your experience question, anything that you shoot, that you do any type of production on, is considered experience. If you're just out doing high school videos, I mean, if you want to go out to, you know, high school and just interview a coach or just put together some feature, you know, throw it on YouTube and post it on your social media. You know, anything that you shoot and do any type of production on, like I said, I would consider experience. I think my first actual technical commercial was when I was actually working at Best Buy. I just asked the mobile department, hey, can I just make a commercial about you guys and just to do something? It may never see the light of day, but it does one of two things. One, it gives you something to show, and also gives you, you know, practice. When you shoot that, you take it back and say, okay, I wish I had done this differently and this differently and this differently. You kind of, you know, you start thinking in that mindset of, you know, this is what I want it to look like. And so then you can it helps you from start to finish.
Put in your, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, there's even experience here, like, both Kayla and I were part of Inside Jacksonville, and there were other shows when we were here also, but that's experience right there, and that helped me when I eventually went to Channel 4, because I knew how a show was done and put together, and not just on paper, but I could see it in physical form. And it definitely makes a difference. So even here, and you have a studio, like, ask one of the teachers, hey, can I do something, you know, put together something. Best thing right there.
Or call us. I'll tell you, one of the interns that I hired a couple of years ago was one of the folks that had the least amount of experience. But his personality and his willingness to learn, there was something about the way he presented himself. And I'd rather see, and I ask all my interns to write a blog. Again, as Karen said, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but I want to see that you can write as well. But we will also ask for samples. Writing samples in particular, but samples regardless. And the things that I get are schoolwork. And the problem I have with that is I don't know what you did or what your professor corrected. So I'd rather see the stuff that you're doing for fun or the stuff that you do outside the classroom, because again, it goes to show your passion. Maybe not your skill set, if you will, entirety, because we know you're still students, you're learning. Again, I don't pretend to know the technical side. But what I want to see is someone that has interest and that has passion. And that, and I think everyone up here would probably attest to that, that is going to get you hired 9 times out of 10.
You'll be surprised how far just putting yourself out there and letting people know what you're doing. So filming, high school athletes is your thing. That's awesome that you're doing it and you're going to have a lot to show. But tell people you're doing it, put it on Facebook, and go and tell the stations or whatever, even if you don't get anything back, because eventually there's going to be a point, for example, with me, with Void, when they first started the magazine, they knew that I liked interviewing people at surf contests. I went to work for Fuel TV, which was a part of Fox Sports, and they knew that because I told people about it. I talked about it at surf contests, and I was interviewing people at surf contests. So when they started the magazine, they came up to me and said, hey, you're a writer, you like talking to people, do you want to work for this magazine? And that, it was as simple as that. I mean, I didn't intern there or anything. I was still here at UNF. They gave me a job. I became associate editor within a year and then went on from there. So tell people what you're doing.
I think the bottom line takeaway, however, is probably mom knows best. I want to thank all of our presenters this morning. This was wonderful. You gave them, I know, really wonderful information, needed information. So thank you. All right. I think the next